Welcome to Stars and Sprouts, a pagan parenting podcast where magic meets motherhood. I'm your host, Cawnawyn Moore, here to explore the sacred, the cyclical, and the soulful path of raising children in rhythm with the earth and stars. So today is a very special day. Welcome. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Annette, and she is a fellow pagan mama, a nature lover, an earth-honoring soul, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. Hi, Annette. Please introduce yourself to our lovely audience.
Hi, everybody. Oh my goodness, Cawnawyn. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you finally.
I just started as a fangirl. So to be on the other side of the mic with you talking about these topics that I'm so excited about is really so special. And I just can't wait.
We've been dreaming this up for a while now, so to finally be in the first recording Zoom room together, I'm so stoked to have you here and be in presence with you. And we've had so many incredible conversations up until this point, and so now we've made it. And so we're so excited to share this all with you.
Yeah, and much has happened in those in-between moments that I think were all necessary to have like a really potent conversation now.
Oh my gosh. And for you especially, you've had so many changes in your family too, in just the time that I've known you.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? Time is so strange.
Would you tell us a little bit about your family and about your path and how your spiritual life has evolved alongside your motherhood journey?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think of family, I actually think of my parents and how I grew up as a child. And my household was pretty secular for most of my youth. My mom came from a Catholic background and my dad a Protestant background, but they both explored Buddhism together. And my dad actually chanted twice a day, every day, in an ancient Chinese dialect, Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism. It's commonly practiced in Japan. And so that was eye-opening. Not every suburban Philadelphian kid had that growing up experience. He's now a Baptist. And yeah, I guess it just made me open-minded enough. But oh my goodness, my poor sixth grade teacher, Mr. Burns. I distinctly remember coming up to my teacher. I have a bad habit of kind of like throwing myself upon people to like get some sort of answer. And I told Mr. Burns, like, I want to start a religion about like rocks and trees. And so that kind of implies that I didn't know that that was actually a viable, already existing, very traditional thing, despite my, super open-minded household. So we traveled as a family in just the United States, and those were very like nature-based trips and had a lot of exposure to travel and being places that were about the landscape. So that groundwork was always there, but it's been a long time coming, and I'm kind of slow evolution to get to a place where I would call myself a witch. And so now, I'm a parent of 2 girls and I have a husband, and I guess that's my family now, my new nuclear group here, still adjusting. The establishment of that family is very much parallel to my timeline of claiming a title of witch. My grad school years was when I was like really starting to explore this. And that was also when my relationship was forming and deepening with my now husband. So yeah, it's sort of just co-evolved and they've related to each other mostly unintentionally.
I so resonate with you about having that reality check of like, oh wait, my nuclear family now is like my kids and my husband. Because I still think of family also as my upbringing in a large way. Remind me, what did you go to your undergrad for?
I studied engineering, actually, material science engineering and biomedical engineering, because I'm still kind of obsessed with trying to understand like the root of the thing. I've been turning over all the stones looking for that answer. And I feel like I'm actually starting to get answers now, which is really exciting.
I feel like it's such a common thread, right? Amongst many witches I know, we have this like insatiable curiosity for the why and the deeper why, not just this is what our answer was told. No, actually, we need to feel that for ourselves and know that internally for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that searching for the why is something that we all share. That's like really driving so many of us who have a spiritual path, especially a spiritual path that we're forging, right? Like not to imply that or assume that we all have authority issues, right? But like,
I kind of think we do.
I think we do. I
feel like that's like a passed down like generational trauma that we've all inherited.
But, negativity aside, like just authenticity, to feel it, to really feel it, I think it has to be kind of discovered. I think it all just builds. I feel like we're always spiraling towards our understanding. Got to kind of go here and there. There's these inflection points that, maybe kind of stand out and remember. Sometimes there's a moment of kind of like revelation. I often look back and sort of wonder why I didn't know it before. Why didn't they teach us this in school? Looking for kind of a lot of blame. And more recently, I'm thinking that revelation is such a profound and powerful moment. Why am I resentful, of having discovered it? Like the act of discovery is so profound and like holds so much of the meaning and the motivation and that kind of like internal shifting work. It's a blessing. It's a gift. And to kind of have to work for it and to earn it and to come to it with all of these years of experience and perspective and therefore be all the more profound is like so great. It's been changing the way I look at my upbringing, my parents and all of that.
Yeah, I do think we have to do some like serious internal and shadow work to like recognize that it is a blessing, right? To see past the like judgment of ourselves of like, why didn't I get there sooner? And that recognition of like, oh, things are meant to be this way. It feels, I don't know, very like divine in the sense it's like, oh wait, all these steps have amassed to this point, but you have to like be willing to accept the gift of that. And not all of us are quite ready for that. I'm curious, you mentioned the spiraling and how this has all taken shape and shifted and how recently some of these shifts mentally have been occurring. Do you find that this has kind of taken place as you become a parent? And what other surprises have you seen in your spirituality since becoming a mother?
Yeah. So like, I really think parenthood is a crucible. I mean, not everybody's experience of parenthood is the same, obviously. And what I'm getting at there is that the demands may not be equally distributed among either partner, assuming that it's two people, which it can be any flavor and combination, but like just that the burdens frequently fall primarily on one person, especially in our sort of like modern culture. I could say a lot about that, but I won't.
That's for more episodes in the future.
That's more episodes. Yeah. But yeah, like breastfeeding, oh my gosh. It's an enormous amount of work. And so when you're under that kind of all the time demand, I think that really distills things down. Like that pressure clarifies desire and belief in a really big way. And a new thing that I'm thinking about, so similar to like revelation being like an opportunity for joyous savoring, I think that this feeling I often have now where it's like, I can look at my family and my obligations, financial and otherwise, and sort of see how these are like tethers upon me and ones that I've chosen. But actually, I think that with that tether, that holding back and that peering over the edge, you can play with possibility and you really feel that continual pressure to strive. I was plagued by indecision before I had kids. And just the act of doing something felt so magical because I had to like surmount these amazing hurdles of inertia. Now you're constantly doing something. And now the tension is not about like, oh, just get off your butt and like do a thing. It's like, oh, I can't quite get there, but it's a striving and that momentum is there. And yeah, so I think that for me, and I wonder if other parents are feeling this out there, it is an extreme clarifier and accelerator of personal development and spiritual development. And even just like looking at your kids and being like, wow, you just came out that way. Like, how can you be unmoved by that and seeing that? It's just mind-blowing and I love it.
I love that you brought that up. I feel like creatively I so resonate with that. I know in the past I've had some conversations with Gemini from Witch Space about just like how everything has to become really practical because it, like you said, clarifies it down. Like, what do I really care about? Like, what am I really trying to get out of this? But even in music school, when I went for conservatory, they talked about like putting yourself in a box creatively is far more generative than just be given an open prompt to like create anything. Like, well, what do I pluck out of thin air? Whereas, yeah, friction creates fire, right? And so all of that friction around trying to cram things in and you have to be so decisive. So I love that you brought that up because I really resonate with that on so many levels. Parenthood is a challenge that like you can really rise to meet should you so choose and like allow it to evolve you so much beyond whatever you thought was possible and like you had capacity for it and you can actually really kind of see what you're made of in that process.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned a little bit about earth-based practices and I'm just curious like what your sense of earth-based spirituality and connection with the land, what that means to you and like how you work with that in your own practice, if you'd be willing to share.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's actually changing, I don't know, every day a little bit as I have another experience. It opens another door. What I guess I'm calling my religion in many cultures and histories like wasn't considered religion, right? It was just like daily life, like sort of indigenous people across the world had frequently had these relationships with land where what we may now think of as inanimate objects had consciousness and had sovereignty. And so it's really just that. It's like I'm going to talk to these trees and these rocks, and let them talk back to me. It's like pure, just what feels right. And it's nice to look to other traditions just to understand kind of what are the patterns that other people have picked up on. And I do think that there's something about things that people have done repetitively, said repetitively, that can be kind of generative in its own way. Blessed be, do I feel like that phrase, really carries like a lot of magic in it? Well, I think its magic has been kind of earned and imbued by so many people saying it with an intention over time. Can I feel it really in my body as being true? Or does it maybe have some root in history? So I grow plants. I've been studying herbalism, was able to take an in-person class on energetics. That totally opened my mind. And I listen to plants and I receive messages from them. And I think anybody can do that. I think it's a skill that anyone can develop. And if you're interested, you're in the right place, because I am very much looking forward to talking about it.
I can't wait, because this is so an area that I am not, I didn't come into witchiness through the herbalism door. I came in very much through the astrology door, hence why this podcast was named Stars and Sprouts.
Yes,
because it felt very much like our two minds in union together and bringing in that as above, so below energy to this as well. What's so cool, I feel like so much of what you're talking about mirrors what I've listened to a lot of the Norse artists that I listen to, through Fortuna and Heilung, talk about animism and their beliefs that everything has a consciousness and that interconnection with all plants, animals, beings, rocks, energies, and how interconnected that feels. And it's not this straight cut and dry thing, but they're looking toward these historical references and gaining that knowledge and meaning. And then what you said about Blessed Be kind of reminded me almost of an egregore, where we've put in so much collective energy into a word, right? Or a being, and that's what gives it its power. Then it kind of has a life of its own, which is its own interesting concept, which I'm sure we'll dive into also, because those are the kind of things I want to nerd out about with you. Now with kids, right? So how are you kind of applying these same practices, and are you taking any of these things that you've learned in herbalism, maybe through your class or just through your own curiosity, and how are you involving your kids, if you are, into your practice?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what Gemini said, where it's I'm a pagan parent because I'm pagan and I happen to be a parent. It's not like I'm bringing them along with this sort of magical journey, but kids are very perceptive. And so just doing anything in front of them inherently is doing it with them. My medicine making, we're going to pick these flowers. So I have an oil infusion of St. John's wort blossoms, and a percentage of the flowers in there were picked by my toddler. We did that together. She helps me make my teas and some cooking together. You just in little moments, you pepper in something about the plant, or you kind of ask their opinion about this or that, let them taste these things. And I'm hopeful that these small things will add up. And, add up to what? What is it all about? Why does it even matter? I really think the goal I have is a noticing. I want to sort of teach awakeness, that observation. Kids are obviously pretty intuitive all on their own, but I also really think there's something about belonging that I want to impart. And so it's not just about belonging to our family, which is so small and so limited. We can only do so much and be there in so many ways, but they really belong to the earth and they belong to the plants. Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass and The Serviceberry, talks about species loneliness. And I see that everywhere. I feel like so much of the dysfunction is in conversation, and sort of the public discourse is you're so lost in a human centric world and really don't need to spend so much time there. I think belonging doesn't just come with hugs and kisses. It comes with responsibility. I think Cawnawyn in our generation, we're kind of really getting slammed with a lot of environmental crisis news. Humans are so detrimental to the earth, and there's really no way to be without being destructive, and letting them know actually your role here is to be a steward, and we have that power to actually augment this world.
Yes, that's so beautiful and so true. My gosh, earlier we talked about that sort of through line of wanting to know the why, but I really feel that what's the need underneath that is that sense of I belong to something bigger than just myself. And why is that? And I need to investigate that, and to be able to expose young children to something as profound as that in such a meaningful, easy to grasp way, talking to plants, right? It has ripple effects that we don't even know, but it's going to change their psyche, especially when they're so young, 3 years old. both of our kids. And even younger than that too.
Right.
Has anything that you've ever shown them created a reaction that you were surprised by? Like, did they ever say anything that you're like, whoa, you are picking this up? Or
Yeah. I've asked my 3-year-old a few times, what does that tree say? Or just to see, kind of like, oh, like, do you ever see things? Do you ever, just every here and there, I'll ask something like that. But no, I think the thing that is coming to mind for me is like many toddlers, she'll want to like pick a flower or a leaf or whatever. And I'll just kind of say like, oh, did you ask permission? Or even more effective, I'll just say like, oh, we'll just say hello. And she does. She gets really excited and she's like, hello. Just really engages and gets more out of it. Like, I think the act of picking, like really what is being desired there might be sort of a connection. And so being told like, oh yeah, you can connect. Here's how you do it. You just say hello, Averted many a tantrum with that. And I'm not saying that's going to work for all kids. My kids are maybe not the most tantrum prone. We'll wait and see on the second one. But the first one, I mean, she has her moments, we need a nap every now and then.
Yeah, I've tried using that tactic and it definitely works. Okay, I like have you ask permission. That's good. I'm going to steal that one, see if that works. My baby Winter might actually respect that a little bit more.
Be into that one?
Yes. I have one last question for you to get to know you a little better. And that is, what is your spiritual practice teaching you right now?
Well, I feel like I'm on this like roller coaster and speed racing path of change and revelation recently. So I've been thinking a lot about time. And something I've noticed for myself is that I'll be kind of fixated on something conceptually. And then some amount of time later, it'll like kind of lock in and I'll be like, yes, like I understand or I believe. And the thing that's sort of in the conceptual space right now is that all time is right now time. And sort of all past time and all future time is right now time. I guess the significance there is that is the way in which we connect to our ancestors, which means that is also the way that we connect to our children's children, and that lineage going forward. And I think there's a lot of emphasis on ancestor work and exploring what is lineage work, and what does that look like?
Yes, truly. We should have like a whole episode just on that alone and bringing that practice in with kids, but also, that recognition, because the whole notion of time is like, it's one humans are certainly still trying to figure out. And also it has a much greater meaning when you consider the lineage of being a witch or the lineage of being a pagan and like how so much of our attention is turned backwards, but then also creating a beautiful earth for like going forwards. I'm so excited because you are here and you are bringing such like a steady, grounded rhythm to this podcast. So thank you for agreeing to be my co-host and coming up with ideas with me. And I think this is going to balance out my astrobabble, like airy fireness a lot. So thank you. Because we need all the expressions of magic. And
well, I have no shortage of words as well, as you clearly can see. So
hey, I'm all for it. We're only at the very beginning of this podcast, which is wild for me to say, because I feel like you and I have been discussing this for a long time. So now that we're finally in this beginning place, see all of time wrapped into one experience. And now we're going to move forward. So the main thing we wanted to discuss today is the current holiday season of Lammas or Lughnasadh. This is the middle of the summer on August 1st. So we're going to move into a new segment together now. I usually consider this to be called Lughnasadh. Do you call it anything specifically for you, or do you observe the holiday? I'm curious.
I just say Lughnasadh. I'm new here. I'm figuring out as we go.
So you guys, we're all learning.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be, these will be excellent markers in time because everything is very new. Yeah.
Great. I love it. Well, let's dive into what we're doing to celebrate this year's Lughnasadh with our little ones. I did mention we're going to kind of use the Wheel of the Year as a marker of time in our podcast, but I'm not Wiccan, and Annette, you're not Wiccan, right? So if you're not like super jiving with any of these, the biggest reason I wanted to use this was just because they're marking these points in the year in a regular manner where we're seeing the seasons change. I think we're here to just discuss how we are working with these times of the year with our families and with our kids. And Annette, do you want to start us off and talk a little bit about how Lughnasadh and the rhythms of the earth are kind of playing together?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously this is going to differ depending on where you are, but we're both in the Pacific Northwest. And I've been thinking about what am I feeling that's really distinct to this moment that wasn't true at midsummer and is not going to be true at that fall equinox time. And it just feels like an oppressively liminal space. So we're harvesting. Certain plants in the garden obviously have been yielding for some time, and others not yet. This is maybe the last gasp moment where I am to sow seeds for some leafy greens that could come in the fall. So it's kind of this mixture of both harvest and your last sowing. There's something about fire that's coming up for me a lot right now. And obviously it's very dry here. I mean, Pacific Northwest, it's, the rainforest or, whatever our mossy reputation is. But there's really long stretches without rain. And July and August are some of those longest stretches. So things are crispy and there's that potential for fire, but there's also a lot of traditional stories here about fire and salmon, and the salmon coming up river and being called home by fire, and just how that speaks to early harvest and an anticipation of harvest and an anticipation of a mass death that feeds the land. And I'm kind of getting that like peek around the corner at some of those more fall flavored. I'm looking at you, Samhain.
Oh my God, I know.
I'm already excited. I can't
I'm
wait.
feeling it too this year. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's something in the wind or something. I'm like, wait, Halloween is like in less than 100 days.
Please. Let's just start now. So not that I'm excited for death, but yeah, there's kind of like a let's get on with it feeling that I'm having. But the fire, yes, let me stick with that. So there's also the madrone trees, and they're trees that look like fire stilled, bright orange bark underneath sort of peely layers, and those are peeling right now and they're shedding leaves right now. And these are fire festivals, right? I can see why that history is paired here.
I always really look forward to, we have a blueberry bush outside in our yard and it's been getting larger and larger. And like the blueberries and the lavender always come out like really strong for us around Lughnasadh. So now I always like attribute those two things. I know like a lot of Lammas culture, because of the loaf mass, is connected to wheat, of course, and the first wheat. Also when you think of Virgo season too, being associated with virgin and the wheat and measuring the wheat from the chaff and everything. Yeah, I always associate lavender and blueberries with this time of year and like look forward to those bushes giving fruit and all the yummy things that we make from that to sort of draw out the end of summer. And I feel like here in the Pacific Northwest too, sometimes our summers last into like October, it feels like, and we have these beautiful lush falls. But I love what you said about the trees even now like kind of shedding, and I had like the most visceral sensual experience when you were describing that and just like feeling and smelling it. On August 1st of 2025, by noon Pacific time, the sun is at 9 degrees of Leo. I'm going to put in a little bit of astrology here just to kind of talk about, I kind of want to approach this from a parent perspective and just sort of give an idea of what we might experience. We're past that center point of Mercury retrograde, so we might actually start seeing where the answers or the issues, miscommunication, some things start to get resolved. Clarity starts to return a little bit. So I hope that is the case for you. Something I did really want to mention though, Mars is approaching its opposition with Saturn and Neptune. And this is a little bit of a tough transit. So as a parent, I'm looking at this thinking, okay, so we have some coming up against some sort of authority in this transit because Mars wants to go and move forward. In Libra, it probably wants to go toward what it's interested in, what it's curious about. It maybe doesn't even know what direction it wants to go in, but it knows it wants to move towards something that it likes. And Saturn in Aries is saying, no. No, I want this. Like, actually, I want this thing over here. And so that could look like you as a parent figure being like, we need to get this done. In fact, we need to rush this because it's Aries, it's Mars energy. So I need to get you out the door. We have to go to, whatever it is, your camp, we have to go to the bathroom, something. And that Mars is saying, no, I'm over here interested in this thing. And I care about this over here. And I really don't want to do that. And it might even look a little bit, Mars in Libra can look passive aggressive in its shadow form. Now, whether our kids are going to be passive aggressive, that probably depends on your kid's age. I know my 3-year-old isn't really too concerned with offending me or not, so he will be pretty direct and blunt about that. In fact, he might even be the Saturn in Aries saying, no, I want this now, Mom. He likes to tell me exactly what to do. The other day, he straight up interrogated me. He's like, Mama, you cannot talk to little brother that way. Little brother is busy with something else. And I'm like, okay, but I'm Mom. Has your 3-year-old like started lecturing you yet?
Yeah, her favorite thing to say is don't be quick.
Don't be,
And don't be quick is code for anytime I sort of move or speak with, tone. She has no patience for it, which she's a sensitive person. And I'm really glad that she's pointing out, like, she can tell when I've shifted into that sort of state of annoyance. And is it annoying to be called out for it? Yes, it is. But it's also helpful and adorable.
I know. I'm always like, thank you. And I'm still your mom. I need you to do the thing, whatever the thing is in the moment. But it's good to like sort of shake us out of that seriousness when we allow ourselves like to take the hint, right?
Yeah.
If you have the capacity to kind of slow down and those really sweet, tender moments of asking the deeper questions of like, what did the tree say, right? Like kind of going to that place that feels not tangible, but like holds more profound meaning here. Jupiter in Cancer is going to last for this whole next year. It's why I wanted to release Stars and Sprouts when Jupiter was in Cancer, because it is such a beautiful, exalted energy connected with divine feminine, with nurturing, with caring for. So it's about getting more private, getting more safe, frankly. Your feelings are safe with me. This space together that we're creating is a space to be vulnerable and share emotion and share struggles too. So there's a lot of profound transformation possible. There's this sort of tug and pull between this big performance and like, what are we doing on the outside that is thinking fast and doing the thing we want and getting it done immediately, with this, let's back off and slow down and recognize, maybe we can take our time a little bit more. We don't have to rush into things and demand that things be our way in an effort to create a space where like everybody feels safe. So as a parent, I'm definitely going to be kind of paying attention to that in this season because I'm dealing with 2 headstrong toddlers, and it always is better like when I can just like back off of being, I don't know, boss mom, and I can say like, actually time is abundant right now and I don't need to force, I can allow for the space for them to just have the feeling, or even just in the moments that are really, really tough and they're struggling, they're tantruming or whatever it is, like I'm strong enough to hold space for their emotion. I don't need to also take that on and let it like blow me out of proportion, get super fiery, right? Because I being a fire sign, I tend to like magnify some of those emotions. It's something I'm really working on as a mom. It's like, no, I'm the adult and I can hold the space for them to be upset and not also get upset.
What that's making me think of is when I can feel my toddler kind of going off the rails with her emotions, I leave my body. So I spend a lot of my time in my thinking space, like right up here in my forehead. And I like to reach out and engage with stuff kind of in front of me. And like, I'll just go with her. I'll just go on that ride with her. And then I'm also like pissed or whatever. So I like have to visualize kind of coming back into my body and actually really being in the back of my body and the back of my mind and having that space, that gulf between the outside of my body and where I'm choosing to sit in my own body. And that is the distance that gives me time to decide how to react. And that sounds great, but how do we do it? And like, I can't do this all the time, but moments when I have felt that way, certain plants that have helped me get there are yarrow, which is very protective and can kind of create that boundary where you even just have a sense of where you are. Okay, it's like, oh, here I feel this edge, and that edge is going to protect me and give me that space, and I can move back. I had a really profound experience with that, with 1 drop of yarrow essence. So that's like,
that's some pretty concentrated yarrow.
Very little plant matter is required in this. No flowers must be harmed in the making of this experience. I mean, you can really just, especially if it's a plant that you start to have a relationship with, you can just think about yarrow and start to feel these things. And also just thinking about trees that live for a long time. This moment feels so hot, but the 300-year-old cedar tree could really care less, so trying to think into that tree that's, down the road. These are some of my little handholds with plants in those hot moments.
Okay, so this is why I knew we had to do this together, because now my brain's like, oh my God, and this is the high side of Mars and Libra. And so you're like, the stars and the sprouts coming together, because it's really like you're kind of talking like in a way about the detachment, right? And it's not to be cold. It's not to cut off emotion. It's just to cut off from like getting caught in the fray, like you said, right?
Oh, yeah, no, but explain that to me again. What planets are doing what right now?
So Mars, right? So I mentioned earlier, Mars in Libra, when it's in its shadow form, it can be very passive aggressive. Like it's aggression because it's Mars, or action, but it's done in a way that is masking it with like, oh no, everything's fine, because it's masking it with a Venetian beauty, which is the sign of Libra. But actually Mars in its high form, when it's in Libra, is the judge. And what does the judge do? It's able to step back and detach from the situation to have that objectivity and then act on behalf of a greater good. And so Mars in Libra is justice. And what is true justice like in the form? Oh, this is good too. I'm having like personal hits right now. It's not even Libra season, but like I feel like this is very potent right now, just in general, like in a collective sense. But that whole sense of like acting in the judge of Libra, the judge expression of that, and seeing the sides for what they are, seeing the situation with this level of I'm not getting caught up into the drama. I'm able to assess it and bring together all sides. And it's not necessarily going to affect me one way or the other, but like I'm balanced the whole situation, because so much of Libra energy can easily slip into I'm dependent on this person's opinion or belief or problem or crisis, and the high side of Libra is saying, okay, I see that and I'm able to act in accordance with that, but I'm acting on behalf of a greater good. Well, Lughnasadh time is one of my favorite times, and frankly, it's because I am a Leo.
I was gonna say, I was like, as you stroke your hair, like,
yeah,
it's because it's me.
My birthday is like right before this, so it kind of feels like it's all part of that. But I didn't know about it until I became a witch, which was pretty recently. So to find out that there was like a Sabbath that was so close to my birthday, and like I always associate this with fun and games and fire and just like Leo joy. I know a lot of people observe the 8/8 phenomenon, the Lionsgate portal, and this happens so closely with that. But like thinking about the courage, the strength, that like idea of what a lion represents in human consciousness, to me, Lughnasadh is that time. And I just kind of lump it all in with what I'm already going through. So it feels like my own sense of renewal. But how have you interacted with this holiday, if at all?
You know, I was doing a lot of reflection leading up to this episode, and I was remembering how I have like a reversed seasonal depression or something. I get pretty low in the summer, and I feel like it's around this time. And so when I was thinking about like, well, it's kind of this liminal. Fire festivals are often associated with the other world. And I'm like, was I just tapping into that? I'm like, I don't know, because I really love Samhain. I mean, that's my favorite time of the year. Like, what is it about? It's like, oh, maybe I just wasn't as productive. A lot of my self-worth is like tied up in productivity. So that kind of like depth of summer, you're not on a schedule or a routine as much. And then one of the images that came to mind is like a heavy bough, like weighted down with fruit, like there's like a saturation in this moment, I think. And so, yeah, kind of maybe a darker, or maybe it's just slower. It definitely has a drone to it or something. I haven't lived into a lot of traditions around these points of year. I don't have like a lot of history to call on. It's sort of just this vague, I used to feel this way at this time, and that might change. One of the most favorite things about summer is when it's warm at night and you can kind of go outside. And this was more of a thing on the East Coast where it was humid and the sky would feel kind of low, and you'd kind of go outside and feel like you were inside. But there was like a safety there. And everything was available to you, even in the middle of the night. Maybe that there's something about courage and line with that. I don't know. But I think we're in the thick of it here. I feel like we're on the precipice of something. After this point, we'll start feeling the fall creep in. And I think for traditions that I want to cultivate really are about craft. Because Lu, the god, Lu is like multi-talented, right? So the games, absolutely, that would be so fun. And then also craft. And there's something about like basketry or fabrics. I have stems from Feverfew that are like this crazy iridescent purple at the bottom, and then my St. John's wort stems are like this vibrant orange red. I don't really know what I am going to do with them, but I really want to do something with them.
Oh my god, you should. Yes. And then we'll post it.
Yeah. I was taking pictures this morning and I could not get the color to come up of the stems as they are of the St. John's wort.
I have a bias, right? I have the Leo birthday. So like,
yes, you do.
I have like the joyous aspect around this. In fact, it kind of threw me, if you're familiar, most people, the Vivaldi seasons, right? And his summer.
Nope.
Oh, no. Okay. I think if I played it, I feel like you would totally be like, oh, I know what this is.
Oh, okay. Music.
Yeah,
yes.
music.
I'm
Sorry. I know.
Yes.
I like jumped. Sorry.
I'm like, I have no idea what constellation that is.
Just be ready. We're going to hop around a lot. Yeah. So Vivaldi seasons in his summer, it's like very like slow and languid. And even think about like what a lion sleeps, at least the male lion sleeps a lot, right? I mean, even the Taurus bull too, if we think about the middle of Taurus season and how I always think of Ferdinand the bull, like with his flowers, like there's an immovable quality to fixed signs. Of course, they're fixed. And so I think about like how slow a lion moves. And I remember the first time I heard Summer by Vivaldi, I was like, that that's not summer. Like, summer is joyous and it should sound more like spring. But then, yeah, the oppression of heat too can really suck energy out of us. And I love what you said about the nighttime too. That's one of my favorite things about this time of year. Like, I love being on my deck with the twinkle lights and just like having it be kind of that liminal space between, day and night. And twilight's just my favorite time of day. I think it's beautiful, and twilight lasts for so long here up in the Pacific Northwest. I feel that like in between space, to me, it's always like that's a magical time. And so I get like pumped up and jazzed about it, but I totally understand where like now in my later years, just kind of feeling like, oh yes, there is this, like, what is time? There is no schedule, like there's no regimented anything. And it can just kind of feel like we're waiting for something to happen and for our energy to return. I think because of that, to be honest, like if I reflect, I'm really kind of bogus at traditions around this time. Like as much as I want to participate in games, it always just kind of feels like I'm, going this way, going that way, trying to figure out like, what are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do next week? I don't know. And so there's this liminal quality to it that, especially with kids, I definitely resonate with.
Yeah, like a preparation for what's next, I think is already kind of on the agenda. But, at the games were also ways to perform skill for, maybe deciding what household you're going to be in for the busy demands of the next few months of harvest and that kind of thing. There was sort of a utilitarian kind of gathering preparation. Okay, how are we going to organize ourselves, our resources, our people, in that. And this is thinking from like what we know of like Irish traditional practice around this time. So I think that that's fair to be, it's not necessarily like a trivial game. And I think if I had infinite resources, I would love to have kind of like a little field day in a common green in my neighborhood, like a little block party type thing. And just, have that like sharing of food, sharing of resources, sharing of parental oversight so you can kind of relax for a couple minutes. But, well, actually, you know what? I'll just tell my next door neighbor and then it'll happen. But I know myself, I would not be able to get that idea off the ground. We've had a couple picnics throughout the summer that have been really, really special outside in the land. And I've always needed to tell someone else that idea, and then they made it happen. So I'll just have to do that again and get some games going and maybe some crafts.
Yeah. If Lughnasadh has a message for modern pagan parents, mamas out there, what do you think it would be?
Well, this is less to do maybe with Lughnasadh from like any year, but like what you were just describing in the astrology and about this tension of being rushed and not being interested in being rushed. I guess I just wanted to offer like, why are we in such a rush? And the sense of importance of getting somewhere and like who assigned that importance and, what does it mean to you to let go of that importance? I wonder if maybe this season when we're trying to cultivate that objective judgment, we can turn that eye to some of our other values and maybe free ourselves from obligations that we don't really need to keep carrying.
And you know what? To connect it back to what you said at the beginning was like, time is now, like the present time. Why are we thinking about the next season or the previous season or where we have to go, being in that present place of like, it doesn't have to be anything. It just can be. And what is the rush for? Like that objectivity, there's a deep presence in that.
And like 10 years from now, is it going to matter that you were late, that you were 10 minutes late, even if you were like chronically 10 minutes late, even if you lost that job because you were chronically, you know what I mean? Like, what is your kid going to remember? Is your kid going to remember that stress of always feeling rushed and the constant yelling? I think that there's a greater value to letting go of that, caveats and asterisks there. Sometimes it's really important and sometimes that job is non-negotiable. But yeah, I think having that 10-year perspective, 20-year perspective, deathbed perspective, maybe we could just say like 5 generations down the road. I mean, like I like to think on extremely long time scales.
All at once.
All at once. Yeah. It's a choice. And so taking that pause and saying like, do I need to be this way? Or is there a different option?
I really love the idea that like this time of year is like the earth teaching us that wisdom of, hey, actually you can be present. Like you don't have to get to the next thing. Time is abundant. We are
But
here.
I love Samhain and I want to be there now.
We'll get there.
Okay, fine.
That's not to say it's not happening, but right now. And I really need this reminder, folks, because I've been telling my husband for weeks that all I want to do is go shop for Halloween. It's like, watch Halloween YouTube. It's like my comfort thing. And we are not even in August yet while we're recording this. So I'm like,
oh my God. But I'm so for that.
Be present, like
such duality.
Enjoy. I've been looking forward to summer all year, and then it gets here and it's like, okay, ready for fall. Like, so yes, thank you to our beautiful Mother Earth for giving us this season of presence and awareness. And like, I think to sort of round this out, right? I mean, this holiday ultimately is also about the recognition of the abundance, right? Like seeing the fruits of our labor and, you know, participating in the labor together and recognizing our skills, enjoying this time. So I think it can be really easy to sort of over-explain or complicate gratitude, especially when we're talking with young kids. And like, it's kind of an interesting, I don't know, from like my own perspective, it's been really interesting trying to explain that to them, where like, it's kind of just needs met, like, you know, in terms of the mom-son relationship in our family. And to express gratitude is something that like, I really feel like has had to come from them seeing us act as an example of saying thank you, more a show, don't tell kind of thing. So around this time, of course, gratitude being so prominent of a theme. And I know that I've talked previously on the podcast about I do the feast. So the feast for Lughnasadh is going to be a big one. And I really prefer to have this one outside if possible, because we do have the nice weather. So why not enjoy it and just be outdoors together, enjoying the sunshine, or maybe in the twilight hours. And I try to just keep the gratitude like really simple, but I also usually will perform the shortened blessings of the food and the drink for these times, just so they kind of see me going through those motions and understanding like, okay, there's something bigger going on. It's not just like dinner outside. There's actually a moment that we're taking to celebrate. And a lot of my questions for them from about solstice to now, like winter solstice to now, are very much about sort of the manifesting of like, what are we going to do? And Luna says around the time that I start switching it into like the gratitude of what has come and looking backward. So that's kind of one of the ways I'm working with gratitude. But I was curious about, how does one teach gratitude to their children? Asking for a friend.
Yeah, I think that, when am I not thinking about John Moriarty? Ugh, love him. Please YouTube him. He's an Irish philosopher, poet, writer, and he tells this story about busy mice. And along this mouse's journey, recognizes a series of other animals as great beings. You know, what a great being. And in the acknowledgement of the majesty of these other animals he's encountering, there was great healing. And I think that gratitude, you can kind of come at it and cultivate it by just recognizing like beauty and awe and that kind of thing. And so I really like the idea of a couple poignant questions like you're saying, and also just like a touch of ritual with some formal language to sort of acknowledge a particular day. But in general, I think conversations about like, isn't that just like the most beautiful strawberry?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that just like the most brilliant color here? And I also like the idea of talking more about where things came from. Like, how do you think this got here? You know, by kind of going to plants and places and more frequently saying aloud, like, oh, what a great being, and just letting the rest go off in their little minds.
Yeah, but just posing that question. It's like giving them the prompt, right? And then letting them run with it. Yeah.
Yeah, what a great being. Just saying it. And I think that that's maybe the difference between saying and feeling. You know, I can more potently cultivate up, you know, a feeling, maybe it's like a resonance, a frequency of gratitude when I say, what a great being. What blessing, what awe, what, you know, ridiculous, undeserved grace to be in the presence of this tree, this blade of grass, this stone that's pressed into tar, which is ancient other plants and animals, you know, like nothing's mundane if you don't want it to be. You can put that energy of attention, of engagement towards anything. Just having that phrase and that noticing,
that awareness.
I think gratitude will come from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like this came to like such a beautiful circle where like we talked about like that questioning why and like going deeper, and then that need for belonging. And then once that belonging is like felt in the awareness of, wow, what a great being. Oh, and then that only asks like more questions why. I don't know. I was just like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful, like we've come to this like gorgeous cyclical time. And I honestly feel like just so beautifully wraps this whole thing. I'm just like so excited that you are going to be with me on this journey together and that we're talking about the Sabbats, but also just like these much greater, more profound themes in questioning all of our existence, frankly, and how that plays into parenting and then witnessing that sacred journey within our own children too, and then going through it also, which that in and of itself is a whole conversation of the involvement, you know.
This is making me think of another John Moriarty comment of, we can experience our immortality mortally or immortally, but because we've been given bodies, we experience it mortally and therefore exquisitely. We are a life that has a limited timeline and we are shepherding other lives. This is our mortal chapter that we're engaging with. And isn't it exquisite?
I mean, wow. Mic drop, please. That was exquisite. And I just feel like that's all. That's where we need to end this because that was so perfectly
that would be
done.
great.
So beautiful.
I'm having so much fun. I have so thirsted for sharing thoughts for so long. So hopefully someone actually listens. It would be really fun to have dialogue.
Yes. Well, hey, and any of you out there, we would love to hear what you're doing to celebrate this first harvest with your family. So you can comment on this podcast, whether you go to your favorite podcast streaming platform and you can comment there. I'd love it if you guys gave us a rating so we can sort of move up and reach more pagan parents out there. You can also comment on the YouTube video, which is on my Cawnawyn More channel for right now. That's where you can listen to all the pagan parenting podcast episodes, or you can also email us at our new email, which is starsandsprouts@gmail.com. Would love to hear from any of you out there, what you're doing with your kids around this time of year, how you're reflecting. If you have any questions for us, want to know any resources, and then if you have any suggestions too for future episodes to cover, because this is only the beginning and we have a whole journey ahead of us. Annette, thank you so much for joining in on this entire journey. And as we go forward, I cannot wait to have lots more conversations with you, getting very deep into all forms of paganism and parenthood and connection to the earth and the stars. Thank you all so much for listening and for joining us today on this episode. New episodes will bloom with the wheel every Sabbath and in between. And until next time, keep growing wild, rooted, and radiant.